everyone, and welcome to Who Owns Her Story. My name is Dr. Alicia Jones. I'm your host today, and I'm so glad that you've joined me for this real world research conversation about social media, girls, body image, and a creative outlet available to girls called digital storytelling. So before we start, a few housekeeping tips. Because of this group size, everyone is muted. And if you would please turn your cameras off with the exception of the panelist and our producer for today. So we're going to have respectful dialogue, conversation, and if you do need to become or do need to be unmuted, just request to be unmuted, and we'll include you in any kind of discussions or Q&A. So we'll use the chat feature for the most part during this time for any questions. And as I said at the start, this session will be recorded. So with that being said, today isn't about panic. It's about power. We're going to look at the data, but then we're going to look at each other for questions and for answers. So how we'll roll today. We'll have a conversation, we'll reflect, you'll leave with a plan, and we're moving from data to dialogue to doing. Does that sound like a plan? Good. So before we start, you'll see Davina Bryant floating around in the chat today. She'll be our producer. Davina is handling all of the technical and behind the scenes work that requires focus that I just cannot do today. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Davina, for assisting us today. Once again, I'm Alicia Jones, and this research reflects a personal and professional journey for me, deeply intertwined with my experiences and aspirations mentoring adolescent girls, and motivated by a love for digital stories and my past struggles with self-esteem and body image, including attempts to use rubbing alcohol on my skin as a fourth grader, thinking it would lighten my skin tone, trying to conform to what society said was beautiful. So I embarked on this endeavor to empower young girls. So the question is today, who is writing her story? Because someone is every day. The algorithm is writing a story for her. So today we ask, how does she take the pen back? So why are we here, and what's the point of why this exists? So I had shared with several people before that I had applied for several conferences last year, and this was relative to my topic and some professional endeavors as well. And I kept getting rejected for the conferences. I am a believer, I'm a Christian, and I was sitting right here at this table, and God said to me to stop looking to people to affirm you and do what I already know how to do. He told me to build this on my own and that people would come and to invite experts to join in the conversation. That's what I did. So all throughout late November, October, late November, I was building my website and making sure that I was ready for when the time came. So in December, I turned on the news and saw that Australia had banned social media for teenagers under the age of 16. And immediately I knew it was showtime. And January 24th came into existence. So that is why we are here today, not just for that, but because of the preparation that was done, which added to the research I had done during my doctoral journey. So let's get started with a question. We'll use the chat feature for this one. As I said, I can't really see anyone, so I'm just going by what my producer is able to share. So, what's one way social media has made life harder for her? So in the chat window or chat feature, if you could type, in your opinion, what is one one way social media has made life harder for her, for girls? It help me out by just saying what some of those responses are. We'll take about a minute or two.
We're seeing a lot about confidence issues,
Mhm.
a need for validation, body image, exposure to
Anything else?
cyberbullying,
Could you
mis-
speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry, cyberbullying,
Okay.
uh, um, exposure to misinformation, easy access through direct messaging, constant comparison to others.
Okay. Okay. Those are those are good. Anything else? Just one more and then we'll move on.
Kim has said that it leads them to question their own judgments
Mm,
about themselves.
okay. Yes, I agree. Okay. All right. All right. So thank you. Well, thank you all for putting in your comments in the chat. I appreciate that. Okay, so now let's meet our panel. So just from at the start, we have Dr. Judi Fusco, who is our digital rights expert. We have Cynthia Stevens, who's our mental health and youth advocate. We have Dr. Kim Buchanan, who is our psychologist. And we have Roy Tatum, who is our political strategist. So I'm going to introduce them individually, and then they're going to say a little bit about themselves. So our first person is Dr. Judi Fusco. So first, Dr. Fusco, I invited her because she brings a strong research and learning lens to how digital spaces shape young people's identity and confidence. Not only that, but she was also one of my professors during my doctoral journey at Pepperdine. So I immediately knew I needed to invite Dr. Fusco. So, Dr. Fusco, will you briefly introduce yourself and the perspective you're bringing here today?
Sure. So my name is Judi Fusco, and my career started about 30 years ago, 35 years ago, thinking about technology and learning. I still think a lot about, I mean, that's what I do every day is think about technology and learning. I work at a place called Digital Promise. Um, for many years, I was very excited about digital and promise. And now I'm, questioning what harms are happening. I've been questioning that for, about a decade now. Um, I started my career thinking about online communities, and online communities are very different than social media. And I noticed that as we stopped connecting people to people with people and started relying on algorithms that are replacing people, we
Mm,
started seeing a lot more harms. So I think about those harms every day and think about what we can do to change the culture, the dominant technology narrative um, of, technology is the answer. I'll talk more later, and I hope you'll ask questions, and I want to hear from you all what questions you have. You can ask me anything about algorithms, technology, AI. So I think a lot more about AI than social media, but obviously the line is very blurry between AI and social media because the algorithms drive so many things in social media. Um, so I don't know if that's enough or if you wanted me to say any more, but I'm just super excited to be here. I can't thank you enough for inviting me to this important, so important conversation. And, I have lots of questions about who all is out there and, what they're bringing to this conversation. Are you supporting your own children? Are you supporting multiple children? Are you in a formal environment? Are you in an informal environment? All of that will help me as I talk to you later about, my perspectives. And I do want to ensure that everyone owns their own story and controls the narrative. And, one of the other pieces about stories is not everybody's story is out there.
Right.
And that is some of the problem with our systems, is that not everybody is represented in the story. I don't know if everybody wants to be represented in that. And that's their own choice. And because of this, we have so much bias. So I'll stop for now, but if you want to tell me anything more about you and who you are and what you're bringing, please type it into chat so I can, know more about you all.
Perfect. Thank you, Judi. We're definitely going to have a good conversation with just the nugget of what you've shared so far. Let's move on, and I'm going to introduce Cynthia Stevens. Cynthia Stevens, I chose her because not only have I've known Cynthia for years. We've worked together in ministry and youth ministry, and have worked together in a professional setting. But Cynthia brings a practicality, and she helps connect what we're seeing in real steps with adults and how they can support girls. Cynthia, I believe, is an expert when it comes to dealing with children. She is phenomenal with working with young people, and I have always been impressed about her life and how she's able to connect her experiences with children. So, Cynthia, will you just briefly introduce yourself and what you're bringing here today?
Yes, thank you, Alicia. I'm happy to be here today to share with the panel as well as all of the guests here. As Alicia said, I do have many years of experience working with young people, and I kind of come from both sides of the track because being a person that have had childhood trauma myself, it kind of puts me in a position to understand where some of our young people are, as well as being able to give to them as they come to me. And the things that I share with them, the tools, the strategies to be able to kind of get their voice back. And we want to leave this panel today with many of the young people that sharing with us today, feeling empowered, feeling that they can, feeling that they are who they are, and just overall getting their voice on today. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Okay, let's move on to Dr. Kim Buchanan. I invited Kim Buchanan not just because he and I are colleagues at the U.S. State Department, but because he brings a human-centered lens to what girls carry emotionally beneath the scroll as a psychologist. When I first saw Kim speak at an orientation, I said, "Who was that? I need to know him. I need to know him a little bit better." So, Dr. Buchanan, please share a little bit about yourself and your perspective for today.
Good morning. Yeah, so I'm a psychologist. My PhD is in learning, technology, and culture. I've always been interested at the intersection of what's happening in our heads and what's happening with our black mirrors. I've been studying adolescence and media since 1998. I've been a high school teacher, professor. I spent 15 years training teachers, including how to engage on these issues. I just finished teaching a course on media, and I love hearing from undergraduates what their relationship is with media and how it affects them. We look at things like body image and consumerism and mental health. I am proud to work for the U.S. Department of State, and my research and scholarship really focuses on courage and creativity. So the topic of this, her owning your story, is very much up my alley. And I'm very interested in how we can use psychology to help become our best selves. And my two expert consultants on my appearance today are my two amazing daughters, 18 and 21, whose voices you will hear as I relay the smarter things they gave me to say.
Have to help out Dad. Thank you, Kim. Our last panelist is Roy Tatum Jr. I have known Roy longer than anyone on this panel, with the exception, well, not the panel, but on this in this chat, other than my mother and my sisters. So Roy's mother and my mother were good friends, and Roy is intertwined with our family. But Roy is our political strategist today, and I asked Roy to join because he brings a lens that looks at content and culture and policy and political strategy that help influence what girls believe about themselves. So, Roy, will you just briefly introduce yourself and share what your perspective is for today?
Good morning, and I'm very proud of you, and you're doing a great job.
Thank
So
you.
just keep it moving. We got your back.
Thank you.
I'm Roy Tatum, originally from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Live in Phoenix, Arizona, right now, and also I am broadcasting from Reno, Nevada, where it is 3 hours. I'm 3 hours ahead of you, so I'm here because I got your back. Um,
Thank you.
Professionally, I've worked in the area of politics and political organizing since 1995, organizing college students on the Clinton campaign. I worked on the Obama campaign, the Bernie Sanders campaign, and now serve as senior advisor to Senator Ruben Gallego in Arizona. But I am operating in my individual capacity here. So anything that I say does not reflect the senator that I work for. So I just want to say that quick disclaimer. But when you presented to me this topic, I thought about, I was like, what do I have to offer here? But then, when I thought about it, over the last um, three election cycles, and I'm talking about general election cycles, we've had two women at the top of the ticket.
Mhm.
And those two women were more than qualified, overly qualified. However, they did not succeed in
Mhm.
becoming elected at the top of the ticket. And so I think the lens that I will use to engage in this conversation will come from that perspective.
Okay.
What is our society saying? What is our society telling us when you are overly qualified and the qualification is clear and you are quickly demonstrating your qualifications. However, you do not succeed in earning enough votes to occupy the highest office in the land. That says something about the culture of our
Mhm.
country. And I definitely know that social media plays a huge part in that.
Mhm.
And so I'll stop there and I just want to let you know that that's the lens that I plan to operate from today.
Perfect. That's why I brought you here. Thank you, Roy. Okay. All right. So thank you all, panelists, for introducing yourself. And I'm looking forward to how the conversations are going to flow today. But I wanted to just kind of segue into a few bits of information I wanted to share with you today. So the landscape is shifting. No matter what laws pass in Virginia or in Florida or in Australia, girls are living this reality right now, and we need to deal with it right now. So, where our girls live, it's not just social media. So, we now see that 64% of teens are using AI chatbots. We aren't just dealing with a feed anymore. We're dealing with a relationship between our girls and an algorithm. That's something that Judi had made mention earlier about the algorithm. That is something that we're dealing with, and it dictates everything that they see when they are in social media. It dictates everything that we see when we are using social media, the algorithm. So, I just wanted to give you a bit of a research snapshot. I wanted to share that I wanted to let you know that I didn't want to overwhelm everyone with research and academic talk. I wanted to share my research from my doctoral journey, from my dissertation with you in plain truth. So here we go. Right now, platforms, peers, and culture fight to own her story through algorithms, beauty standards, and engagement. Girls can claim authorship when trusted adults help them build offline belonging, set boundaries, and use tools like digital storytelling to process instead of perform. How social media algorithms and feedback mechanisms trap girls in a cycle of self-evaluation is through by the just knowing that when we look at what's happening in our girls online, we see that what I call the comparison and desirability loop. So my research, this showed up distinctly as societal demands on body image and self-esteem. It's a trap, and there's a result. I also found in the research what I call the hair narrative. I saw this loop vividly in narratives around hair relative to specifically African American girls. The data revealed deep experiences of being teased or bullied, and where media reinforces negative stereotypes about what's good hair and what's bad hair. This specific type of feedback affects self-worth and security, making their personal identity a subject of public evaluation. So, one of the second findings that I found in my research was that body image is a performance. So that's just connect the emotional cost, the anxiety, the monitoring, and self-editing that type of performance causes for a girl. And this isn't vanity; it's labor. It's the pressure to perform an identity rather than live, rather than to live one. In my research, the focal point of the research was centered around how adolescent girls who display issues with body image and self-esteem, and how they use digital storytelling to share or to cope with what they are experiencing as girls. So just wanted to clear up what it means or what digital storytelling actually means. So I don't mean content creation, I mean meaning making. It's the difference between performance and a reflection. It's a structured connector, multimodalities of voice, images, sound, text to create a story of experiences. It's a therapeutic lifeline that girls have available to cope with the struggles and the chaos of the digital world. I was first introduced to digital storytelling, not because I knew what it was, but because it was something that I was just doing when I was creating videos for church. I was making videos for mission trips that we went on and preparing for creative productions that we were having at different parts of the year. I didn't realize I was making digital stories until I started the program at Pepperdine, and one of the professors spoke about digital storytelling, and I said, "Oh, well, that's what I do at church." Didn't know that that's what I was doing. So it all connected, and that's kind of the start of why digital storytelling was so impactful and so meaningful for me. So the next finding from my research came from um, the perspective of protective factors at work. So there is good news. There are trusted adults and mentors who listen and not just monitor. By bringing the conversations offline, they help make conversations more meaningful and purposeful. And that is where performance is not required. And by having media literacy and providing that critical thinking and not just avoidance, being literate about what it is that one is doing on social media means the world. And also parents being literate about what's happening in media is very important. So now this leads us to the big part of the conversation somewhat is conversation with the panelist. At the start, I made mention about what the perspectives that our panelists bring today, and just wanted to just pose some questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close this PowerPoint for right now because I want to see the panelists as I'm speaking and be able to hear from everyone. Now I can see everyone on the screen. This is wonderful. I love it. I love it. Seeing all these faces. Okay. So I'm just going to open up some of my questions for today. And um, so I have one question for the whole panel. And feel free to come off mute. And whoever wants to respond first, that's perfect. And we'll just kind of flow from there. So when you hear the three things that I'd made mention of during the presentation so far, relative to the research snapshot, what one thing rings loudest to you in your lane and why? So we had the comparison loop was the first finding. The second finding was body image is a performance. And the third finding was the protective factors at work, those mentoring and having those that village basically was important.
Hi,
Anything come
Alicia.
to
This
mind?
is
Yeah.
Cynthia.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one that you mentioned in regards to having trusted adults in community, that one stood out the most to me, and it stood out the most to me because of my personal experience as a young girl,
Okay.
whereas I did not have that, and it wasn't until I started growing older into a young adult when those factors was put into place where I was able to actually unleash and release those things that had transpired in my personal life. So that's the one that stood out the most to me.
How did you grow from that, from your from taking that leap of those things happening to you in your childhood to how you then relate to young people?
I took what happened to me, and I am transparent when I speak with young people that's
Mhm.
going through the struggle. And I feel that what happened to me as a young child, and I'll just go ahead and put it out there. I dealt with sexual trauma as a young child, and I feel that my experience, I went through that experience not for me, but for other people. And I've taken that experience and I use that experience to help. And I've helped many, many young ladies and young men actually that has dealt with sexual trauma. So the way that it opened up for me and me being able to open up and to release, it started when I was able to have those adults in my life that I could speak to. Even though at that point I was a young adult, my trauma started at the age of 5 and continued until I was 12. However, I was 21 when I got someone that I felt I can speak to. So for that many years, I was silent. I did not have a voice.
Mhm.
I did not have a voice. But when I did get my voice, I made a commitment to myself. I made a commitment to God. And Alicia, I remember telling you that what I went through is going to help many, many people because I will never, ever be silent about it again. And that has what's been transpiring through the years, through all of my work that I've been doing. That's what's been transpiring, just sharing my story.
And that part is important, sharing the story, and first making the revelation or realization of what actually happened to you, and realizing that, okay, this is something that happened. I can't change it. It happened. But you took your experiences and then helped thousands of young people over the years. Have you found in your time of even just being online where you're seeing young people who are struggling with some of the issues that you dealt with, and how are you seeing them handle it and cope with it?
One of the things and the factors that bring a lot of young people to me, especially online, is connected to the young people that I've worked through over the years.
Okay.
Where they may have a cousin or a niece or something that have this struggle and they don't know who to talk to, and then they'll reach out to me through instant message, and then we kind of make those connections through that way.
Do you see any, although people may not have said specifically that this sexual trauma has happened to you, are you noticing that in girls online, that you feel like that is the root cause of what it is that the content that they create and the how they reach out to people online?
Yes. And a
Okay.
lot of times, some of the content that they're creating, it is a cry for help.
Mhm.
And if people doesn't recognize that, we can just read over it and keep moving. And sometimes there are things that post that may be made, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, and then I kind of go in somebody's instant message box and say, look, I'm here if you need to talk, that kind of thing. So I'm constantly looking and reaching out, just to help young people that have dealt with that.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Panelists, did you have anything you wanted to add on to what Cynthia was saying?
I'll affirm the importance of modeling. I was
Mhm.
well into my career before I was comfortable disclosing to my students that I have an anxiety disorder. And it
Mhm.
changed my relationship with them, including students who confided in me that it was reassuring to them to see somebody with an anxiety disorder reach the level of professional success that I had. Like they needed that kind of role modeling, and I wasn't expecting reciprocal disclosure, but in a lot of cases I did. And so Cynthia, as a fellow trauma survivor, I mean, yeah, if it's going to live in our heads, let's put it to work.
Right. Exactly. I totally agree. Totally agree. Anyone else, Judy?
So, I will share also that I have 3 girls who are very much my informants on this process.
Mhm.
They are college age now, so we're past the formative, really impressionable years, and I'm glad that they were, that it was 10 years previous when they were there, because it was a better world algorithmically 10 years ago, less damaging. Um, but I still saw all of the things that you mentioned, and I asked, would they want to come with me this morning and be here and talk about it, and they said no, that it's
Mm.
too traumatic to talk about at this point still. And we have really good conversations, and and I hope that I did well modeling appropriate behavior when they started in social media, and they couldn't get it before they were 13, absolutely. And most of them were, well, 2 of them are older. One of them, the youngest, of course, gets it right then, because they have to keep up with the big siblings. Um, but they experienced things, and they would take breaks. And I was going to tell you what I did with them was, and this was a while ago, and I don't know if it would still work. They had to do an apprenticeship program with me and share a social media account before they could have their own.
Mm.
And we had really good conversations around using social media by doing that. So that was one thing that, as a protective adult, I did for them, and I feel it was a helpful strategy. And just one of the things that I've always thought is, when I was a parent or when I was in any type of relationship, if there was a conversation that was difficult, that was going to be difficult, that I was dreading, that meant I absolutely had to have it. And, maybe I didn't want to have it, but when it's hard, it has to get talked about. Otherwise, it does continue to fester and grow without any conversations around what really is happening. And sometimes it can become bigger than what it really is. A burden shared is half the burden. So I feel keeping those human connections, which is, the professional adults that are the protective adults that are so helpful, is what we have to do. And the message from technology is that technology is the answer, and that techno chauvinism, and that's a term from Meredith Broussard, and I'll share some of her books later. I have a set of slides that I'm going to leave you all with. But technology is not the answer. And if you're told it's the answer, please push back, because humans, I'm on team human over here, are the answer. So I'll stop talking, but I resonate with your themes so much and appreciate that breakdown. It's really helpful.
Thank you. I'm just looking over here in the chat, and Anita Nixon said that's interesting. Working with middle school students, when you ask them do they want to talk about a subject, they will say no, but will open up in settings where they feel a level of safety where they can be vulnerable, even if it is with the same person. Anita, did you want to come off mute and just kind of talk about that a little bit more?
Yes.
Anita,
Thank
your
you,
doctor.
Alicia. I am. Um, yes, just to add on to what I was saying, a lot of times if you ask in a very public setting, like you're just lecturing or talking about a subject, no one wants to answer a question in the room, and they never want to talk about anything of substance in that setting. But I happen to have a classroom where a lot of kids want to come and eat lunch. I'm thankful for that. And I tend to get certain kinds of students that want to come eat lunch in my room. Um, a lot of the others, the neurodivergent students, a lot of kids who are, in the LGBTQ plus, the community. And when they feel a level of safety and feel like they can just kind of disarm themselves a little bit, then they want to talk about things. And then they often want to test out a subject that they're seeing in social media. And it's not always politically correct, and it's not always they're not always saying good things, but they haven't had an opportunity to filter. Wait, what I'm thinking isn't necessarily a good thing. And but no, they've never said it out loud to anyone. So having a space where you can test out the good, bad, and ugly is a really nice thing. Um, and to bounce off of other people, like, wait, you can't say that's not a good thing to do, such and such. We don't do that anymore. Whatever it is, um, it seems like it's a testing ground for lots of good conversation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to segue a little bit. I had made
Before you move, I want to
yes.
chime in
Okay. I was actually going to ask you a question too, but go ahead.
on a foundational piece
Hmm.
around something that you said, and then obviously, as Cynthia alluded to her childhood. I remember growing up and around the holidays, whether it was Thanksgiving, Christmas, or some family gathering, particularly in the late 80s, early 90s, like we would watch The Color Purple.
Mm,
And The Color Purple, as an adult, looking back on The Color Purple and understanding the story that Alice Walker was telling, is extremely traumatic.
okay.
And we as children, a lot of times, laughed
Hmm.
at a lot of the demeaning jokes or the language that was used. And I believe that that can set a tone and even a preference for how you deal with darker skinned women or how you deal with nappy hair or how you deal with younger women per se as an older man, given the dynamic of Mr. and Seeley. And
Hmm.
so I think one thing that should happen, or probably should have happened, but didn't happen, is that we should have gotten some kind of explanation as to what we were seeing. And we were kind of left to our own devices in our own heads because the adults were laughing at some of the things. So,
Hmm.
so I just wanted to introduce that into the conversation because I believe that that establishes a culture that continues to self perpetuate.
Hmm. I agree. And I particularly growing up did not like The Color Purple. But because it is so embedded in Black culture, and to not be able to quote certain parts of The Color Purple, people will want to pull your quote unquote Black card because there's some things you don't know. But that the trauma that the women endured in The Color Purple, especially during that turn of the century, that time period where they didn't have much power, and the Black men that they loved didn't have a lot of power either, but they inflicted a lot of pain on the women who were in their lives. We didn't have an outlet, like you said. It came out in the 80s, but it was written, I believe, in the maybe in the 70s. Alice Walker, but that was a different time frame. I'm curious to know what kind of conversations people have about The Color Purple now online, especially with the Broadway plays and the movie that the second movie that came out, how the conversation is elevated in terms of colorism, in terms of how women are treated. Right. Now, Roy, I wanted to ask you a question because in the start I had talked about how um, when this idea came about for this project, I had turned on the TV and saw that Australia banned social media for teenagers under the age of 16. So, in your work, I'm not sure how close Arizona is getting to that, but I know that Virginia has some restrictions as of January the 1st, and Florida has restrictions as well for teens using social media. What are your thoughts about that? And is that something that you're seeing happening or being discussed in the halls of the Senate?
Well, I will say I believe the ultimate idea around the use of social media for
Mhm.
most Americans is the First Amendment.
Okay.
Is that I have freedom of speech. I have the right to go online, type whatever I want, and say whatever I want, and nobody can do anything about it because it is my freedom and my right to do so.
Mhm.
Whether the information I'm sharing is uh, vitriolic, whether
Mhm.
it's complimentary, whether it's suggestive, and whether it's even true. I
Mhm.
have the right to say whatever I want. So I believe, politically speaking, that you would, if that type of legislation were to be introduced, it would be ridiculed. I believe it would be ridiculed on both sides,
Mhm.
regardless of political affiliation, because someone would say you are suppressing my speech. And
Mhm.
so now should social media and even there, you see social media platforms now removing the fact check
Right.
system, and
Mhm.
they're saying, hey, we're not going to get into. I'm particularly speaking about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook,
Mhm.
where he said he didn't want to get involved in monitoring political speech
Mhm.
on the platform. However, and I don't want to go on a rant, but he is cozying up to the current administration
Mhm.
um, in all kind of ways and giving money. But I would say that I believe, politically speaking, it would be an unpopular decision to move to ban social media or restrict social media to certain ages because someone would say you are infringing upon our rights to speak. I'll stop there.
I agree. I am coming from a different perspective, however. When I heard about um, Australia banning social media, I immediately thought, what about the girl who doesn't feel comfortable talking with her family about how she feels, um, is pretty much shunned or not understood in school about her body image and self-esteem. And the only community that she could find that accepts her is a community she found online. So at 11:59, she had access to that community, but as of 12:01 in Australia, that community was gone. So what happens to her? And that in a way broke my heart because although I didn't grow up with social media, if it was available in the 80s and 90s, I would have been a terror. I know I would have been. I would have been a terror because it was already hard enough to raise me anyway without social media. But and my mother could probably attest to that. But it I know that I would have been the child who would have found the community online and to resonate with, to speak to until I felt comfortable formulating the words and having the conversations with people in my community to talk with. So I'm opening this
If
question
I
up
may
to
jump in,
go
if I
ahead,
may
go
jump
ahead,
in
go
real
ahead.
quick,
Hmm.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and I oftentimes ask the question, what would my adolescent life look like if social media were available?
Hmm.
And I don't have a negative answer for that because I look at how my adolescent life actually turned out because we were raised in church. I think a lot of people that know us know that we were raised in church, and that community was that community. However, I felt, in my opinion, the community was limited because I had questions. I had questions that just wasn't answered in the Bible. I had questions that wasn't just answered in the encyclopedia. I had questions that people had to think about, and if they had, some deeper level of knowledge beyond the just what their theological answer was, I wasn't satisfied, and so I kept looking, and that brought made me study on things on my own, and I also was into sports, um, and those are the things that I encourage. I was passionate about sports myself, which opened up another community. I enjoyed playing video games, which was another community. I collected baseball cards, which was another community. So a lot of times I myself, and I think you know this about me, I was in I was I was always in the streets. And I was always just networking with different people and never met a
Hmm.
stranger. And so I think
Yeah.
that that is one of the reasons why I've been successful in the political arena
Hmm.
because I've even talked to people that diametrically disagree with me, wearing the red hat and everything. And individually, when I have conversation with them, we can actually find common ground and agree on some things. However, in the group think, that's a whole nother conversation because it becomes they don't think and
Hmm.
that it becomes group think. And
Hmm.
so people like myself are supposed to be the enemy. But individually,
Hmm.
a whole different conversation.
Yeah,
So
we come in common ground. But let me ask this question to the whole group in terms of well, what happens to the girl at 11:59 in whatever state you live in or even in Australia? What are your thoughts about um that girl and what does she do? And what kind of support system? I thought that saw Cynthia make mention about having those supports. Like what does she do and what does her family do?
Alicia, I would
Yes.
imagine at 11:59, well, 12 o'clock,
Hmm.
that it can be traumatic to her to lose the only supports that she knows.
Hmm.
And as I put in the chat, natural supports, that's when they should already be into play. But that's why it's very important for us that have young people that we're engaging with, that we give that listening ear, that we open up avenues and pathways for them to feel safe talking to us and speaking with us and being able to talk. Because the only life some of these young people who know is social media.
Hmm.
That's the only outlet that some of them actually have, because in many homes with some of the people even that I work with, that I deal with, in some of the homes, they're constantly being shut down, shut up, get out of my face, that type of thing. So the only outlet that they do have is social media. So that can possibly be very traumatic, another level of trauma for her.
Hmm. Yes, totally agree.
So
Judy,
I
do you have
don't,
something to say?
well, I was just, I don't know how Australia is doing the ban.
Hmm.
Um, but whenever we put a ban into place, it's easy to get around the ban.
Right.
So if the girl found her home, I'm guessing she would find a way to get back into that space. So yes, it would be traumatic. And, kids are really good at getting around protections and systems.
Yes.
So, and I feel like if at 11:59 you started learning some of the words, you would also be able to find other resources. And, I started in the space of online communities, and I really value community, and whether it's online or in person. But community is when you deeply get to know the folks that you're interacting with. It's not about quick connections. That's, you can get to information, and that's all it is information. And then you need to take it and process it and think with it and think with others about it to make it real, actionable knowledge and usable for yourself. And I think that there will always be a way to get to these spaces. And I think that Cynthia's right. We need to make sure we have the spaces for humans to connect and be together and build that trust, because it really is about trust. And that's such a human characteristic.
And that trust aspect, that was definitely one of the themes that came out with my research, and having a village. And that village is what young people gravitate towards when they know that when they are going through something, um, what from some adults may say it's not that big of a deal, but for a child, it is everything. And it means the world to them to have someone who can identify and relate to what it is that they're going through. But having that village and having that trust that when I share something with you, it's not going to be part of the conversation. It's not going to be a joke in the family. It's not going to be something where I can overhear a parent talking to another person on the phone about my experience. You're building trust that way. I wanted to ask you a question, Kim, because you had made mention about in your intro that your research has really been a lot upon on happiness and flourishing. So, can you just share with us in terms of how you feel that that research, that aspect, that angle is helping girls when it comes to social media, and how it's helping or it has helped your children?
Yeah, so I'm fascinated by the adolescent mind and some of the phenomenon that are happening there around things like imaginary audience, believing everybody's watching you, and in an era of peer surveillance, everybody is watching you. Personal fable, that your experience is distinct and different than anybody else's or anything that came before, the desire to fit in, as well as the desire to stand out. Judi, your talk about community really resonates with me, because one of the quests of adolescence is to manage intimacy, physical intimacy, emotional intimacy. Like, what do I do with all these feelings? Um, and you want that paradox of being vulnerable and yet safe. And so I think part of the conversation I would have, my mind immediately goes to LGBTQ plus youth, and the ways in which they can find a support network that might not be present in their home, their school, their town, their family. Um, you got to find some people that you can feel vulnerable and yet safe with. And I think in a lot of cases, that's getting out of algorithmic spaces, getting into spaces where there's not a robot managing who sees what you say and doesn't manage what you get to see. And I'm thinking about spaces like Discord and Signal and Blue Sky. They're platforms that advertise themselves as like, you get to decide who tells your story. And shout out to Brene Brown, who emphasizes who has earned the right to hear my story. And we want to give power back to youth, teen girls, and say you're not obligated to make yourself vulnerable. You get to choose who you share with, because I mean, my girls tell me, a lot of people from their generation, first they say not all girls are the same, right? Don't put us in one box. But a lot of them have a kind of doom mentality that we've just had to give away all of our vulnerability. I mean, how many of us write our social security number down on a form in a medical office when we shouldn't have to? That's not appropriate, right? That you don't need that information to treat me. But it's 1,000 times worse for them. Like all these free products, yeah, it's stealing my personal info, but I have to be on this platform because I need to connect with my friends. So I think giving power back would be my message. So if I was in a position to support like a queer youth in Australia, I'd be like, well, where can we find a place for you to connect with somebody? Because you deserve that, and you get to have, like you said, power, not panic.
Right. And that is also to about the getting to the question even of this whole session about who owns her story, and making sure that it's the girl who takes her power back, and the fact that she has the right to do so, that herself is her belongs to her and only her, and it's the job and the responsibility of the adults in her purview to be able to help her along the way, and so that she is comfortable with expressing who she is, and being that village that she needs. We are getting to almost 12 o'clock. We're getting closer towards the end. Um, I wanted to open up the chat specifically for anyone who had any direct questions that you wanted to ask the panelists. This is your time to ask a question. Is there one? Is there is there anyone?
While you are looking through the chat, may I
Mhm.
say something real quick?
Sure.
Has anyone, and I would love to know if anyone's researched this, because when we're talking about social media, and I have a probably a good robust amount of people on my social media. I probably can touch 10 to 15,000 people with a post. But that's not natural. And when I say natural, I'm saying historically, when we're talking about telling our story, conveying a message, that message could live in my house, could probably extend out to my block, and maybe my classmates or something if I'm in school, if I'm in a school setting. But to be able to communicate to people all over the country or all over the world all at once is not a natural method of communication
Mhm.
that probably also provides an extremely high level of dopamine in that kind of response. And I know when I hit a nerve because people will chime in on something, and I want to go back to see what they said, and I want to think about the right response, and so but that's not a natural method of communication. Anyone have any, and I'm talking to the panelists for my own self. That's my question.
It's not anything that I have researched, but I'm curious to know, Judy, you.
Yeah, and I don't know this work super well, Roy, but I think the number is about 150 in the past, I think, but you should fact check me. Absolutely fact check me. And yeah, I mean, we didn't have that reach. And, when the book came out, The World is Flat,
Mhm.
like we started thinking differently about communication. And so I'm really curious. Now you made me curious, and I'll find some research later and I can connect with you if you want, Roy, offline, and or anybody. But yeah, no, it is not natural. It is not natural to have the power. It is not natural to then have the pressure to have the power. And we see that in every level of people with that much prestige and power. So I'll stop there because I don't actually know, and my fingers are itching to go look in the research database. So I'll stop talking.
Yeah, so I want to jump in.
Mutual
I've got
connectors.
Mhm.
three things. One, Roy reminded me that I should explain that my views do not represent the U.S. Department of State. I'm out of
Oh,
habit of
me
saying
too.
that.
Me too.
Two, yeah, absolutely, Roy, what you're saying. And our laws, our culture, our parenting, none of it is kept up with this. Our social norms, like our ability to grab a megaphone and tell the world something, none of our guardrails have kept up with that and given us guidance on that. We have the first generation of children that are being raised by parents who are raised on screens. Like we don't know what the heck's going on at this point. That said, what I can tell you as a psychologist is adolescence is a time of experimentation. Impulse control is learned through feedback. You actually have to have lived experience to develop the executive processes in your prefrontal cortex. Like your brain grows through doing things and getting feedback. Ideally, we've always done that small scale, low stakes. I tell an off color joke, and my older brother says, "Not cool, dude." Right? Like, and now I can send a nude picture on the internet. That's
Yeah.
big scale, big
Mhm.
stakes.
Mhm.
Very, very dangerous.
With no consequences sometimes.
Well, there are consequences if the right
Depending
person
upon
at
the
the right
audience.
time finds that
Right.
information.
Right. That is true. That is true. Um,
We do have our first question
sure,
from
okay.
Ms. Yvonne Jones. She has a question for Cynthia. What are the natural supports that you were referring to?
Natural supports are parents, school teachers, pediatricians, people that typically engage with the adolescent. So people that regularly in their lives, aunties, uncles, grandparents, like I say, school teachers, counselors, pediatricians.
Okay. Oh, that's a part of the village.
Hmm.
And I had made mention earlier about having media literacy. It's important to educate that village so that the village can then convey the right information to the children that they're connected to. That's important. Davina, did we have another question?
We do.
Hi,
Okay.
Ms. Jones. I just want to say hi.
Jeffrey Bowen would love to hear the panelists also speak about how to help girls write their stories well and right from the beginning.
I can start. First off, teenagers don't want to hear from us, right? Like my daughters reflexively roll their eyes when my wife opens her mouth. It's just so textbook. We want to be curious rather than directive. So ask questions, be inquisitive. Don't try to tell them how to do it. Modeling makes a big difference. To tell a story like, I got angry at work and I was going to send a text, but then I went for a walk and I didn't send the text. Like make it personal, make it real for them. I encourage stepping back, working on intentionality rather than habit, routine, compulsion, addiction. Um, like if not a total cleanse, then some boundaries. Use the settings for do not disturb hours. Don't keep your phone by your bed. And then again, remind them that they do not have to be content for the algorithm. If you want to write something and share it with your friends, there are social media platforms that restrict the eyes to just the people you choose, the people you let subscribe, or the people you connect with. Um,
Mhm.
you don't have to feed yourself into this machine.
Mhm. Yes, that very good point. And just to go along with the question that Jeffrey asked, the purpose of my research was centered around digital storytelling. So you're talking about how to help girls write their story. Digital storytelling is the perfect opportunity to do that because you are allowing them to just for themselves to take some of the images of times that made them happy or times that made them sad, allow them to record their voice and be able to put that voice to the images that they have created. They could draw, they can write, and be able to use what it is that they have created um, as a um, as a touch point or something to look back at in terms of how they felt at that particular time, so that over time they can see how their progress, and over time they can begin to make stories and in that time of making stories, there is progression. So they're going from times where they are feeling sad or feeling lonely or feeling disconnected, and or even feeling bullied. And as they begin to own their story and begin to become more comfortable with themselves, you begin to see the progression of who they have become as young ladies in what they create.
If I may, are we have we looked at the impact of money in
Mm.
this? Because as we're talking
In
about
what able in
storytelling,
what like social media,
I'm
or
I'm going
okay.
I'm going there.
Okay.
As we talk about digital storytelling, right?
Hmm.
I'm remembering the birth of hip hop and as women MCs, uh, how they started. When I think about women MCs, I think about a Roxanne Shante, Queen Latifah, MC Light, right? And right when I said those names, you thought about who they were and what they wore.
Right.
But now when we talk about Cardi B or Nicki Minaj, um, or Rihanna or whoever, even Beyonce, and then there's another image, and that image is deemed as successful, and the money, I think the money has definitely changed. And so, what is the impact? I mean, I know what the impact is, but
Mhm.
have we explored that aspect of
Mhm.
how it impacts women to show up?
Mhm. It impacts women to show up when they see. Let's first look at the mind frame or the mindset of that particular woman. So if a woman sees that, especially a woman in entertainment is seeing that by exposing more of her body, certain lyrics that she uses, if that gains more attention and gains more followers and gains more of a reputation, she's able to secure a more solid record deal, or is able to get more movies and more entertainment contracts. Then there is that's currency for her, and she's able to perhaps think that she can do more, even though she is not necessarily representing herself in a way. I personally have not connected the money to it, but I can only imagine that it- that by flashing the money with someone who may have demonstrated signs of being secure in themselves, but the pressure of performing, the pressure of being relevant, and the pressure to succeed is that catalyst and that influencer to cause her to not to do things that she does not necessarily believe in. I've heard times that in some of the artists, when people go to meet them one on one or meet them at home, they are completely different than who they are on stage. It is a persona for them, but that persona unfortunately impacts our children in a negative way. And they may say, okay, I say these lyrics, but I won't let my children listen to them. I say these lyrics, but I will put my children in schools where those lyrics that I sing and that I wrote about are not used in everyday setting. That says a whole lot. Was It felt like somebody was getting ready to say something. Okay. I hope that answered your question, but that go ahead, Judy.
No, I
Oh,
just
Finish
I'm
your
wanted us
thought.
to explore it.
Finish your
I'm
thought.
sorry, go ahead.
okay.
Okay.
So I was just checking to see if there were Davina, do we have any more questions?
Yes, we do have a question
Okay.
from Dr. Tolliver Haycox. She
Pepperdine.
she wants to know, how do you find the balance between allowing them to tell their story and staying grounded in the offline world?
Mm, good question. Panelists, do you want anyone want to tackle that one? Will you say that one more time, Davina?
Yes. Uh, How do you find the balance between allowing them to tell their story and staying grounded in the offline world?
Hmm.
So I haven't taught K-12. I work with a lot of K-12 teachers though. And, one of the things that is happening in the K-12 world is that we're getting more and more technologies in class. Um, and I often go into classrooms and see kids wearing headsets and working on a computer alone. And learning is social. We
Mhm.
know from a lot of research that it's a very powerful tool to have kids interact. I do research on collaborative learning. I have some fabulous materials if anybody's a teacher and is interested. That's a little shameless plug, that were co-designed by researchers and practitioners working together. Done with shameless plug. But really that connection and keeping the kids requiring some interaction and not putting the headsets on. And like when I've gone into classrooms and people think they're doing collaboration because they have kids all sitting at a table wearing headsets and working one-on-one on the computer, that's not collaboration. So, it's like we really need to say, what are we doing? Is this what we want? Are we seeing our kids excited? Are we seeing kind of dead eyes? Because I see so many dead eyes when I go into those classrooms where that's happening. And that's not what I want. So, what can we do? And, making changes is hard. And somebody said kids love to look at the screen, it keeps their attention better. They don't want to hear from us. They absolutely don't. But somehow we have to connect with them.
Mhm.
So, doing whatever, I know a fifth grade teacher. He would get people engaged because he said, if y'all do this at the end of the year, I'll stand on my hands on my desk. And the kids ate it up. And then it became a secret that he would literally stand on his hands with his feet on top of his hands on his desk at the end of the
Wow.
year for them. And it was their little secret, and nobody would tell it to the next group of kids. But, he had this little gimmick that got them. And like, and I don't know if that would work today. That was 10, 15 years ago. But, we need to do whatever if it takes backflips, we need to get our kids' attention and not have the screen taking all of their attention. So and I am one who is called an emerging technology expert. And I think we need to be very careful with the emerging technology and say, is it doing what we want? We haven't had that full conversation with society yet. What do we want?
Right.
So that's I'll
It's
stop
it's
talking.
it's grown so much, and it's grown at lightning speed that by the time you feel like you are comfortable with a new technology, something newer has come on the scene. And now, AI is everything now. And so 10, 15 years ago, that was not a part of the conversation, but it is a relevant part of the conversation now. AI and social media. I'm curious to know if we have any teachers in the audience who are seeing any um, seeing that play out with the children that you work with. And if not, Davina, do we have any okay, Anita, did you want to say how you see it playing out in your um time teaching in middle school?
Yes, thank you, Alicia. Um,
Welcome.
just a slight shift from last year to this year. There was a lot of interest and a lot of talk about whether or not it was okay and whether or not it was a good thing for students to use, writing papers. Seems like that was a big deal. Is there was it safe? Are we cheating? That kind of conversation. The shift this year with students, not more so students than adults. I've noticed that the population of kids I work with are very much opposed to the use of AI, especially when it comes to art or kind of usurping their creative ability. And that they feel like somebody is imposing on their ability to tell a story. I did not see that coming. I did
Mhm.
not see that coming. So it was just an interesting thing. I didn't see that coming. But
And I remember you had made mention that to me before, and I didn't see it coming either. And then when you mentioned it, I started to see that backlash online in certain groups. I started to see it among younger people, and I started to see it in different elements at work. And while AI is definitely being pushed as the answer, there is definitely that part of that segment of the population that's saying you can't see the real me through it. And I think that's definitely something to think about and something to consider. And for any budding researchers out there, that's definitely an avenue to consider. Um, we have about 11 more minutes left, but I wanted to pose a question to the panelists, and then however many you want to speak up, it's okay. If you could influence the next generation of learning and social platforms, what is one concrete design change you would want to see that would make it better protect girls and their body image and self-esteem? I'll say it one more time. If you could influence the next generation of learning and social platforms, what is one concrete design change you would want to see that would better protect girls?
So I don't feel we have enough information that we understand fully to say what it is that technology could do.
Mhm.
And I also, want to push back on, is technology the answer?
Mm.
I'm, coming from that. I don't want to be a techno chauvinist. Um, I think we haven't had enough conversations to know. One of the things I'm thinking about from Dr. Justin Anderson's comment in chat, what's neuroscience saying? We don't know what's happening, but we know that development has been, shaped by our environment for hundreds of thousands of years, however long we've all been humans. And now we've added these new technologies and we haven't understood what it's going to do, what it's going to disrupt, what it's
Mhm.
going to change. So I think that, I don't, I personally am not going to make a technological prescription for what I want to see. I want to see more time for humans, because every time we add a technology, it takes away. Jill made a comment about teachers being so busy.
Mm.
Teachers are so busy. We in 2022, ChatGPT was literally thrown over the wall by OpenAI, and everybody said, "Hey, let's use this, and it will help, and it will change things." I did not think it would help. I did not think it would change things. I kind of cried, and I went from nobody wanting to talk to me about AI in education to somebody having like written my phone number on the bathroom wall saying for a good time call, but it was like to talk about AI in education, call. I was exhausted. So I think that we do need to have the right to say no. absolutely to technology, we do need to really understand what it's doing to the heads, inside the heads of kids, and to our society. And we haven't done that yet. And I sound like an old person. I kind of am an old person, but that's okay, because I also hear this message from a lot younger researchers and younger people who really care about potential harms that happen to everyone. And we also know that these harms are more pronounced when kids are in vulnerable positions for either being in a historically systematically excluded population, from being in a poor area, from being in a community that is different. Any kind of difference, these folks will be the most harmed. So without thinking and naming that, I think, or we shouldn't have the conversations about thinking and naming that. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Any of the other panelists, did you want to chime in terms of what's one next generation concrete design change you'd like to see in the social platforms that are being used now?
If I may jump in from a political lens,
Mhm.
and I wish I had a more positive uh, answer for you. I would say on one side, someone would say prescribing a method for AI use to improve or benefit young girls would be probably misused or abused or even manipulated. And another would say, "Hey, your government overreach. The young girls should be trained at home how to think about themselves, or they should the foundation should be established there." So I don't believe that you would find in the government, in the political space, the answer, because one would say, "Hey, there's abuse and there will be manipulation," because there's also a trend saying, "Hey, there's this." I've just learned this, that the trad wife trend of saying that women should just be traditional women in the home, taking care of children, cooking, cleaning, and just taking care of home. And then the independent a woman message of saying, "Hey, women can do everything. Women can run for president, or even be president, be the governor, or run companies." So then there would be conversations combating one another on both sides about this topic. So unfortunately, I don't believe the answer would be in the political space either. And so I just think that one, from an advocacy standpoint, I will say this: if there was a policy subscription about the use of certain algorithms, I would definitely advise people to create an advocacy group to bring it to your elected officials' attention, because I believe there was a case that happened against Instagram that was encouraging young girls, or that was promoting, not promoting, but it was causing young girls to harm themselves or even commit suicide, and there was a lawsuit that
Multiple.
was presented around that. So there are methods to be able to address that, but you got to make the systems do it. So
Right. And I'm glad you said that because with even with Instagram, there were multiple lawsuits, Meta overall, in terms of systems that they had to put in place so that especially with the algorithm relative to young people, that a lot of pressure was put on them. In Australia, what they did with their social media ban was they made it they didn't put the penalty on the families. They put the penalty on the social media companies and put the onus on them to put up the guardrails and the blocks on the technology to prevent those young people from even trying to get back on that are under the age of 16. So they put Australia put that pressure on them and put strict fines on them. So then it caused is now causing the social media companies to rethink how they are then advertising and catering to young people because now they can't. And so when you hit people with in the pocketbook, then you get their attention. They could have done it before, but now it's affecting them money wise. It is
Mind you, we're
12,
talking about real abusers that don't even get prosecuted now. So I'm
right.
sorry, I had to say that. I was missing a point, and I wanted to say that they're real abusers that
Yeah.
we know
Mhm.
have caused abuse, and
Mhm.
they're not even being held accountable. And
Right.
so, even in the highest office, that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Okay.
All my statements are my own and don't
That's your own
reflect the
personal
office that I
statement.
have. Right.
Okay, thank you. It is 12:28. This is a wonderful, has been a wonderful conversation. I wanted to leave you with three commitments, or calls to action. And one is to talk earlier. Number two is to build offline belonging with young people, with girls, and to set boundaries. Those are our action items and our call to action. In this last minute, panelists, do you have any final words that you would like to say to this beautiful audience of people?
Yeah, so I appreciated your question about how to design. I would
Mhm,
teach mindset.
mhm,
Teenagers want to feel wise. They might use a different word for it, but they want to get it. They want to feel mature. They want to feel like adults. And part of maturity is wisdom. Wisdom doesn't come from an algorithm or AI. It comes from experience, reflection, self-honesty, honest feedback from people who care about you. It can come from faith and connecting with a higher power. Like if you want to find wisdom, it takes work, not
mhm.
doom scrolling or bed rot.
Totally. Very good point. Dr. Fusco, any final comments?
I just want to say thank you for all the great questions, comments, and what a wonderful way to start a Saturday morning. We have a lot of work to do. I put my LinkedIn uh, connection in the chat. Please connect with me. I'd love to keep the conversation going. So I thank you. Thank you,
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Jones.
Yes. Roy, any final comments?
I've talked enough.
Okay. Okay. Cynthia, any final comment?
Again, I just want to thank you, Alicia, for inviting me to participate here, and hopefully, all participants got something that they can take back, and hopefully, this is not the end, but the beginning of something great.
Absolutely. I can already tell you and tell everyone else this is not the end. So stay tuned.
I do want to say one thing.
Yes.
You
Mhm,
have I want people to understand that they do have more power than they give themselves credit for.
mhm,
And if you want to see change legislatively, you
mhm,
will have to be loud, persistent, and just aggressive and multiple. And you're gonna have to organize your neighbors, your neighborhood. So if we use social media for a productive manner, we can
mhm,
use social media in that manner. And that's actually my nature in of organizing civic engagement. I tell people all the time, like you want to see, the congressional members make a change, show up, call, be respectful, of course,
mhm.
but let them know that there's a serious issue that you are concerned about and you would like to see them take action.
Absolutely. I agree. Civic engagement is the way to go. I'm going to stick around for a few more minutes, but I wanted to thank everyone for joining me today, not letting me be here by myself. Like I said, this has been a wonderful conversation. This event has been recorded, and so it's going to be broken up into to short video clips. But I just want to thank everyone for participating in the conversation, uh, putting their comments and feedback in the chat. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much.